Some I know it's crazy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live back here on the Philippe Matthews Show. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are around the world. We've got him back. It was hard to get him on the first one. Now it was harder to get him back on the second time, and it's because he is one of the most sought after attorneys in the state of California. The law office of Keith J. Staten, ladies and gentlemen, and associate, specializes in handling complex criminal litigation, DUI litigation, and administrative licensing issues. After serving at the Sacramento County Public Defender's Office from 91 to 94, he started a private practice in 1994, concentrating on criminal defense. Over the last 24 years, he has successfully handled numerous cases ranging from DUIs to homicide and is known for his successful verdicts. And what he's really known for is what he calls Know Your Rights, which is a book that's going to be coming out soon and that I'm threatening him every day to finish. And how to save the lives of our melanated men and women around the country. Keith Staten, welcome back.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. It's a thrill.
Well, my friend, you know, since the last time we had you on the show, we had Anton Sterling and Philando Castile event. And, you know, our first show, we can review it. That was, you know, would Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, and so many others, would they have been alive if they knew what to say to the police when they are either pulled over or asked to come over here, let me talk to you, and normally and almost naturally, it's what you do. You have said that, hey, you need to know your rights because there is something that you can say to them, that you must say to them to invoke what you call the Fourth Amendment. Can you review that for us?
Yes, absolutely. And what I'm talking about is based on what the Constitution of the United States dictates. The Constitution says that officers shall not stop you, detain you, unless they have a reason to do so. So what the Constitution protects are unreasonable stops and seizures. A lot of times the cops may have a reason to stop you, but you won't know that. And so what I'm teaching is a way of behavior so that you can eliminate any type of, let's say, argument that begins, let's say confrontation that begins. And what you're doing is you're exercising your rights, and the officers understand that. And so it all begins with whenever you have an encounter with an officer, whether they stopped you in the car, whether it's at the mall, whether it's on the street, the first thing that you got to understand is when they talk to you, it's always consensual unless you say certain words to dictate the conversation, which is, am I free to leave? Now, the reason you ask that is because what you are informing the officer is that you do not want to engage in a consensual conversation with them. And since you don't, you are asking, am I free to just leave and engage in this conversation?
Okay.
And that invokes the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, because now the officer, in order to have a conversation with you, has to have reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred and you're involved in it. And so that's why you don't know what's going on in the officer's mind. So when you ask, am I free to leave? The officer has to either agree and say, yes, you are. I just want to ask directions, or I just want to know something, or I'm going to write a ticket and then you can go. Or they will say, no, you're not free to leave. And now you are detained under the Constitution. Now, what people don't understand is you don't want to argue your case as to whether or not you've been illegally detained or profiled at that particular time. Because once you are detained, there's only one thing to say, and that's, I am not giving information until my lawyer is present. And what that does is invoke then the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, your right to remain silent. A lot of people believe they know what that means, but they don't know what it truly means. And what it means is, now that you are in custody or detained, and now when the officer is questioning you, the officer should read you your rights if you are under arrest. but you're not necessarily under arrest when the officer is talking to you. So what that does is invoke your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent so that you can protect yourself from anything you say that will and can be used against you later. Now, what the officers have to do is they have an individual now that they want to talk to who says, am I free to leave? And the officers say, no, I'm investigating something. I'm going to give you a ticket. And that's fine. And then when you explain, well, I want my lawyer present, your only obligation is to identify yourself. And that can vary from state to state as to how much you should give. But my position is give them your ID, name, rank, serial number. Give them your name, your address. Don't lie to them at that time. But that's all you've got to give them. They're going to run you. They're going to look you up. They're going to want to ask you more questions. But this is where you got to use the behavior of self-control and not say anything. This is the time to observe and not speak. By remaining silent. Okay.
So here's the piece on that. Won't that get you killed? I mean, because I just have to be honest with you. By knowing your rights and invoking that, won't they say, oh, you think you know the law, and that will piss them off because they now know that you know the law and know, or not the law, but you know your rights, because that's a difference. And I would assume, and maybe I'm assuming incorrectly, but wouldn't that make them really, really upset to really want to do something to you and set you up in a way that, you know, because basically what you're saying is by invoking the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment, you're shutting them down.
Exactly.
And that wouldn't that piss them off? What do you, I mean, what do you do in those situations?
The key is going to be this. The key is, are you ready and mature enough to now exercise your rights to your benefit? It will always be to your benefit to do so. Now, and I know what you're saying. Look, I can't stop any person from shooting me or hurting me if that's what they want to do. However, what you do by exercising your rights is you have de-escalated any conversation that's going to lead to them hurting you. Meaning
or any type of confrontation.
Confrontation. Words.
And what about resisting arrest? If they're arresting you or in the detainment, okay, so you don't resist.
More than likely, here's what's going to happen. And this is what I brought up last time in the conversation. Most of the time, even with Brown and Gardner, what happened was conversation first. They wanted to stop them both, right? And the cops asked them to stop. What came after that would be a conversation about, why are you stopping me? Why do you want to stop me? That is not the time to ask questions. You are basically, you are submitting to their authority by merely saying, am I free to leave? And I want my lawyer, here's my ID. And then from then on, you're in a waiting game.
Does that make you guilty by default in their eye that you are not talking to the police? You're shutting down any kind of conversation and they, you know, some of them play good cop, bad cop. Some of them try to come up friendly. Then they have the cops surround you, and it's very intimidating. And of course, I'm not speaking from personal experience, ladies and gentlemen. But
I can.
Well, so you know, it's a very stressful time, and part of your thinking is like, well, look, I don't want to be detained.
Right.
So I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear. Right. And that's where you really screw up, isn't it?
It is. And here's the thing. You know, we as somewhat of a people, we want to voice our concerns. And everyone wants to voice a concern when they feel that somebody has done them wrong. Okay? Now, all I'm saying is, by that behavior, you have done magic. First thing you've done is you've committed the cops to determining whether or not you should be detained. That's the first thing. Because if they say, yes, you're free to leave, you get out of there. So once you know that's going on, once that's in your head, you've got to understand, the less I say, the better. I don't have to engage in conversation with them. There is no law nowhere that says you must talk to lawyers or talk to the cops. In fact, it's just the opposite. The Fifth Amendment was designed so that when you assert your right to remain silent, the officers actually cannot question you anymore. They should not question you anymore, should I say. It's a magical word when you say, I want my lawyer. Now, will they stop? No. They may try to bait you into saying something. Hey, we're going to find this. We're going to do this. But the key is to remain silent. That's what the Fifth Amendment allows. And believe it or not, look, historically, what I teach when I do lectures is why that is. That is because the framers of this Constitution were thinking ahead. They were going, you know what? What if the king came over here and said, I want my stuff back? What if he came and said, do you have my stuff? And his agents were questioning and wanting you to answer questions that then would get you, hung for treason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they designed their criminal justice system here, they viewed the Fourth and Fifth Amendments of the Constitution to be stalwarts, to be things that are stuck in stone, that you as a criminal defendant or a suspect have every right to assert. The officers know that. They know when you say, I want to speak to my lawyer, yeah, they know that you know your rights. They don't know that you're more intelligent than them and knowing the rights. They don't care about that, but they know you know your rights. And they should respect that. Now, what I'm saying is there is a behavior that goes along with your knowledge. The behavior is, I don't care if he's yelling at me. I don't care if he's asking me anything. The only thing I need to say is, I want my lawyer. I told you I want my lawyer present. Now, and in your head, what you are saying is, hey, do what you got to do. Check me out. Run me. Whatever. Do what you got to do, but you're getting nothing out of me. You're not getting me fighting you. You're not getting me calling you names. You're not getting me resisting and just moving in what they call furtive movements, which are movements which would threaten the cop. You basically lay limp. You basically just say, okay, I want my lawyer. And you just watch more than do anything else. And here's the beauty of it from a criminal defendant standpoint. Number one, you haven't consented to any searches or seizures. Number two, you have remained silent, so anything you say cannot be used against you. When and if they arrest you, because most of the time, what I feel is that officers can get frustrated, but if they don't have probable cause to arrest, they're going to let you go. So you just got to wait it out. If they got probable cause to arrest, if they got a reason to search you because you're on probation, parole, okay, but still ride it out because you were going to jail anyway. So why not go to jail, arm your lawyer with at least an argument that the detention may have been illegal, as well as they may have been violating your rights by arresting you. That remains present until something else occurs in your legal case. So, and what I mean is, an officer comes up and you want to engage in, why are you stopping me? Why are you doing this to me? You realize officers can lie to you legally. So does it make sense to engage in the conversation?
Officers can lie to you legally.
Legally. They don't have to tell
set you up and say anything to get what they want.
There you go.
Wow.
Until you exercise your rights.
Wow.
So if you're going to engage in conversation, if you're going to just let this conversation escalate, you are not acting in your own best interest. And I'm just saying, save your own life. Like you said, look, if I'm laying flat, and I'm gonna tell you, let's talk about this guy in Florida who was trying to protect the autistic kid. Let's talk about that situation, because he was doing everything he could. He was doing his job. Someone called in and said somebody's got a gun. So the cops come out and they come in full force because we pay them good money to respond when somebody says somebody has a gun. So they're doing their job at that point. Now, when they get there and they see the situation, they have to assess it. And this is what I say. Cops come to a scene, they want to know, they want to identify three people. Who's the victim, who's the suspect, and who's a witness. That's all they care about. That's all they want to know. That's why when they come to scenes, they're yelling at everybody. They're telling people, go here, go there, because they don't know who is really who. So they come to this scene, and the brother's laying down, and the other guy's sitting next to him, and he's got his hands up. He is doing everything necessary to show the cops he is not the aggressive one, and that no one there has a gun or a weapon. He verbalizes it to the officers. And yet the officer, and what is a attempt to save his life, shoots him. Now, in that situation, he did everything he could. The officers are wrong in that situation. So let the system roll in terms of what will happen to him in terms of an employment way. Believe me, the man has a great lawsuit. And he has to pursue that now because he
here's where a lot of people that'll be watching this video, some of the people that are on live now watching and said, yeah, that don't mean that don't mean shit. Freddie Gray, we just saw nothing. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to go through all of this, go to court, get killed or whatever, my family member, whatever, and nothing's going to happen.
And I'll tell you something. It's something we're not going to solve here, but what happens in the law is that officers get what's called immunity. They are given a sort of a chance, so to speak, to so that we don't punish them for their quick judgment they have to make sometimes. Now, let's go to Freddie, but first on this guy. The thing is, he did nothing wrong. So when they assess that situation, and when it comes out in the end, and I know it's no payback for getting shot, it's no payback to the family for getting killed, but it's these incidents that we are lucky enough that are documented on film that will then lead to some sort of change. At least we know what the man was doing was exactly right. Now, the only thing is, the officers, they come up, they claim that they thought that the other guy had a gun, you see, and that he was being held hostage. Now, if I'm standing away from that scene and I'm looking at it, I see the guy touching something. They say he said it was a fire truck, but I also see the other man with his arms up. And I don't know whether or not he's feeling threatened, but he says he isn't. And that's where I think the officer went overboard. This is that one guy. This is that person who, for lack of training reasons, because he's just not a good human being or something and just made a terrible judgment at the time, but he was that one guy who overreacted and fired his weapon. I view that as those are situations we're never going to solve. We're not. The only thing we can solve is how we react to situations. Now, Freddie, sometimes we let the law and we let the legal system handle our problems. And it's all we really have sometimes is moving it to the legal system. And what was found in Freddie was that they found him not criminally liable. Now, that's important. Because when you go back, in our system, there's civil liability and criminal liability. For criminal liability, the standard is very high, which is why even in your criminal case, my criminal case, they have to prove that evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case, it is 51-49, a preponderance of the evidence. So in a criminal case, yes, it is very hard to get a conviction sometimes. Officers, viewed by the public as people who are doing things under stress, sometimes get an out. And we've seen that. We've seen that with Rodney King. We see that people when they look at it decide those officers are under such stress. They suffered so much in the chase that they were doing what they can. Now look here, they were wrong. The juries were wrong. And that's what happens in our society is we do get that wrong as a society. Now, we do get it right sometimes, and I'm hoping in the Freddie Gray, when that plays its way out, even through the criminal prosecutions and into the civil prosecution, that civilly these guys in the department will be held liable. It's a much easier lawsuit than to prosecute criminally.
Now, does that? Let me ask you this: because of does the criminal verdict have any play or merit to the civil?
Even if you're found not guilty, you can be found civilly liable. Think OJ. A very good example of how everybody watched that criminal trial and the jury came back not guilty for whatever reasons. But then they went civilly because they knew we're just going to attach a monetary weight to him. We now are, it's a preponderance of the evidence. And anyone would say, yeah, it's more likely than not OJ probably did it, because that's all you need to find. And you see what happened. They went through, they used the evidence that they use in the criminal case, but the jury there only had to be 9-3, and they just had to say, he probably did it. And they found that way. And that's what will happen, hopefully, to the cops in the Freddie Gray, to the cops in the guy in Florida, and cops all over. I mean, look, I'm not in charge of their civil suits, and I can't speak to those lawsuits that will happen, but I am hoping those lawsuits do occur and that there are lawyers in those jurisdictions who will bring those suits, regardless of the cost necessary to bring them, because the civil liability will be lower. And on top of that, I want something done, hopefully on an administrative level with the officers, that somehow they are either removed from service, suspended tremendously, or arrested, of course, and prosecuted when they are wrong. Now, back to the big picture. So here we look at the situation. Young black man walking down the street. He's not doing anything but walking down the street. An officer pulls up. Hey, come on over here. Talk to me. That's the point in time when he says, am I free to keep walking? Am I free to leave? Because what he's saying is, do I have to talk to you? Are you stopping me and detaining me? Because if the officer says, no, I'm just going to harass you, I'm just going to do this, then he walks away. If the officer says, yeah, you have to stop and talk to me, come here, orders such as that, then of course you comply. It's at that moment in time that, just like when we are driving in a car, the driving while black thing, we see an officer back there. We know they're telling us. In our minds, we are getting ready for whatever is going to come. We already know if he's going to pull me over. We're already thinking, well, wait, I wasn't speeding. I didn't run a red light. You start running through a list of things you didn't do. My tail light's not out.
Well, let's talk about that tail light. Philando Castile, what went wrong there? I mean, everything went wrong, but walk us through that.
Once again, all right, now here's the thing. I don't have privy to everything, but from what I have seen, if it is a traffic stop, and I am, and what I don't know, and here's the thing that bothers me about the case, is why did it become a critical mass situation so quickly? And I believe it came that way because when the officer came to the window, there had to be some conversation, and I don't know what he said, because really he shouldn't have said anything because he's not the driver, right? So I don't know how he got into the conversation with the officer, number one. But even if he did, I understand that he told the officer he was a concealed carry holder, which is, and the officer then began to pull his weapon when he saw that maybe he was going to give him the concealed weapon. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where now the officer, we want the officer to believe him. You see what I mean? Right? Hey, I'm a concealed weapon holder. And then, in fact, officer, let me go reach for it right now. Now,
Well, they
if
said he
that's
wasn't
all,
reaching for the gun. He was doing what the officer said, and he was reaching for his ID.
and that's where I don't know if why is he identifying himself? You see, how did it get from the driver to him, number one? And then because here's my thing. If I'm a concealed carry holder and I'm sitting in the car, once again, officer, are we free to leave? Because I'm not telling him I'm a concealed holder, right? Why would I even bring that up?
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Well,
I mean,
what if they ask? What if they come to the car, because it is a carry state? What if they come
right.
to the car and say, "Do you have a weapon?" What's the first? Do you answer and say yes, or do you say,
Am I free to leave? Are you detaining me?
"But I just asked you if you had a weapon"?
Here's the problem. The problem with, do I have a weapon? Okay. Now, let's just say, there's several concealed states, right? Texas, Arizona, right? And now
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, let's say. Whenever officers stop vehicles, I don't believe in every situation they're asking, hey, are you a concealed carry person? So what I question is how did that subject matter come up for him, who's not the driver? You see, why would he want to even see the ID from a person who's not the driver? So from what I'm getting, and I'm trying to give the officer the benefit of the doubt, I think he overreacted, but I'm wondering, did he mention, without the officer even seeing a gun, I'm a concealed carry holder? Because that's not a question that will generally come from the officer. If the officer wants to detain me to determine that, then am I free to leave? And the officer says no, then I would like to talk to my lawyer before I answer questions. You see? Now I'm sitting in the vehicle. The officer says, can I have your ID? And I would probably say, officer, reach in and get my ID. But I'm going to sit right here because I told you I'm not talking to you until I have my lawyer present.
So I mean, what if they, it's like, okay, I'm going to take you out of the car, beat the hell out of you, and then take your ID? I mean,
You know what?
I don't know.
I would have rather that been on tape because she was filming the whole thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Now, for him to even detain him, remember, probable cause. There's got to be some reason for him to wonder why he's a concealed carry holder, why there was a problem with him in the passenger seat when the driver is the one who's responsible for the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have all of the facts there as to how it got to that situation. That's what confuses me about that one, is how did it even come up? I'm a concealed carry holder. Because even if I'm on the street and I'm walking and the cop stops me, hey, can I talk to you? Well, I'm going to say, well, am I free to leave? And he'll say, no, I think you're a concealed carry holder, right? I mean, then I only want to talk if my lawyer is present. And then the officer let him do what he's got to do. He'll find my card. He'll find my gun. You see, but I didn't give that to him.
All right. So the situation with Anton Sterling, where it was legal for him to have his gun, and they did this kamikaze chokehold on him and threw him down. And as he was on the ground, completely detained and compliant, the officer yelled "gun," and then shot him to death.
Now, in his situation, I don't know if he was a concealed carry holder because it was Louisiana, right? And I don't know if
I think that was Anton Sterling. I think Anton Sterling was Baton Rouge.
Yes, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a concealed carry state. So and the way I interpret it, what the officers, all right, let me look at that situation. Now, for some reason, apparently, someone made a complaint that there was a guy in the parking lot, once again, just like the other guy, a guy in the parking lot, and he's got a gun. right? Some anonymous call. Now
From
that,
a
you know,
homeless
that
person.
happens
Yeah.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody called out. I don't know if they identified him as the person, or when they got there, they just went to him, but they went to him at some point. And at some point, I gotta believe they asked him, can we talk to you? Are you the guy? You see what I'm saying? That
Mm-hmm.
conversation had to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what he said, but I bet you he didn't say, am I free to leave? And if so, I'm not, then all I want to do is talk to my lawyer. I'm pretty sure he didn't do that, because that would have necessitated the officers going, no, you're not free to leave. And, well, we want to detain you and pat you down. You see what I'm saying? Or
Mm-hmm.
arrest you. Now, if they arrest me and I have the gun in my pocket and the gun happens to be illegal, it's an illegal gun possession case. But it isn't an attack on him. And that's where I don't know, but I'm gonna bet that maybe he did not respond quick enough, fast enough. He didn't give them what they wanted, just like you said. So in those situations, all I'm saying is the best way out, not the perfect way, because we don't live in this perfect world where everyone's gonna do what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the best way out is anytime an officer comes, because you don't know they said you had a gun. You see, that's the thing, is you don't know what somebody called and said. So the only way to protect yourself is to say, hey, am I free to go? Because you will at least learn this. Somebody called on you. You happen to be the target, rightfully or wrong. So in that situation, it's always best, am I free to leave? No, I'm not. I don't care if I got cocaine in my pocket, guns in my pocket. At that particular point, the best thing for me to do to live is to say, well, then I have nothing to say until my lawyer comes. You got me. I'm here. Now, if they want to grab me, put me in cuffs, put me in the car, search me, they can do that. If, and all I'm saying is the cocaine and the gun, if in fact that was an illegal detention, if in fact it was an illegal arrest, those things could not be used against me later. But I didn't give them anything. Now, what if it wasn't a violent struggle? And he said, yeah, I got a gun in my pocket. I got some cocaine in my pocket. And the cops say, oh, well, we got to arrest you, right? Then that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But for something to escalate to the point to where they're struggling with him, you know, we have got to take a step back sometimes in those situations. And it's hard, because here's what I know. Look, I've stood in parking, I've been out there, and the cops pull up out of the blue. Now, maybe I'm doing something, maybe I'm not, but the cops pull up out of the blue. Like I said, if they got a call, I don't know what was done, who called.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have said, this guy's out here raping women left and right on the street, and the cops got to respond, and they get there and I'm standing there. You see? So what are they going to do? They're obviously going to come at me thinking, well, I'm the guy. So that's why in that situation, I'm standing there. The cops are walking to me. The first thing I do, am I free to go? No, because they're probably got their guns at me. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Then I have nothing to say until my lawyer comes. I comply, hands behind my back, lay down, do what they say, take me in. I have lived. If what they did was wrong, leave that for your lawyer later to battle. It is not good to do your lawyering out there on the street. And doing your lawyering is, why are you stopping me? I didn't have nothing. Why are you coming at me? Believe it or not, that is way too many questions. Just that one. Asking them why. You see? Because you cannot control that. That's something you don't have that knowledge. You're not listening to the call. Because let's jump to the flip side. Let's just say me and you are hanging out. Two guys walk up, they both got guns, and they're holding it at us. And then they take our stuff and they walk away. Now, we want to call the police, right? And report it. Shouldn't we? Don't we have that right to do so? So we call
Well,
the police and we say it's two
it
guys.
depends. I'm from the south side of Chicago.
Well,
We might do a little something different. I'm just saying.
no,
But
that's why
no, I know what you're
that's why I
saying.
said we want to call the police, maybe.
It'll be a little different. It'll be some furniture moving. But I understand
But
what you're
let's
saying.
just say we call the police.
Right.
We stay right where we're at. Police come out. We tell them, hey, man, it was this guy, this guy. They went walking there. Now, the cops, what are they going to do? First, they're going to go, all right. And they'll probably send a unit, you see, to the people that we sent, right? That we told them which direction to go in. And if they run into two people there that apparently match the description or not, they're probably going to stop them. You see what I mean? Do they know that we've called the police? Do they know we've reported it? Because like you said, they may think, oh, it ain't gonna be no big deal, but we just can't run into those brothers no more because we gonna get it back.
Right.
Right? But if the police rolls up on them, tells them stop, you see, are we free to leave? No. And what the cop is not going to tell them is there's two guys down the block here who said that you just robbed them, or people who look like you just robbed them. Cop ain't going to tell them that. The reason.
So what you're saying is now is really it is, it's almost it's a counterintuitive behavioral shift.
Yes.
That keeps you alive and gives you power of your attorney.
Yes.
Because you're taking your legal rights in your own hands.
Yes.
And here's the unfortunate thing, and that is there's in terms of living in this propaganda matrix that we live in, every television show, every news channel, every movie tells you to do the exact opposite of what our rights are that we have to invoke. It seems counterintuitive because it's like, okay, am I incriminating myself even more because I'm not? Because they would say, are hey, you're not cooperating with the popo. So if I'm not cooperating by answering questions, then what do I do? But you're saying, no, that's exactly what you do.
That is exactly what I'm saying. That's why we have a Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. I can quote statutes from different states. I can quote case decisions from different states, but it all flows from the Constitution and what is there. That's why, I'll give you an example. That's why we have a tough time with the Second Amendment and defining what it really means. Because we know it's there. There is some writing in the Constitution that says you may have a militia, a well-regulated militia. Those words are there. And what it has been interpreted as is, I can have my guns. But it does say a regulated. So that's why you can jump through hoops in order to own guns. But that one little constitutional amendment has now become sort of a fire starter for people to believe that, well, wait, I want to keep my guns because what are they afraid of? The state coming in and grabbing them, right? That's usually what they say is Obama's going to take my guns. The government is going to take my guns. That'll never happen unless you do something to force them to take your guns. Like have a felony conviction. You see? That's why having a felony conviction means you can't have firearms anymore. Like picking up misdemeanors where they can put a 10-year rule on you not having guns. That's perfectly legal under the Second Amendment. You see, we can restrict your rights, and the Second Amendment, but not on the Fourth and the Fifth. We chip away at them. The courts say something like this. Well, to assert your Fifth Amendment right, you clearly must say, I want a lawyer, not should I get a lawyer. You see that little subtlety? But that subtlety is important. That's why I say you got to keep it simple. I want my lawyer. That's all you've got to say. It's a magical word. An officer should not interrogate you at that point. Now, here's the big confusion, right? Because you mentioned it. Television, movies have totally skewed things. For example, people believe, well, they didn't read me my rights. right? They
Mm-hmm.
stopped me. I bitched about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I argued, why'd you stop me? And they never read me my rights. But I
Mm-hmm.
told them everything. You see? The problem there is they stopped you, right? I argued with them. Well, if you use, am I free to leave? There is no argument. The next step is I want my lawyer, because now the officers must respect the Fifth Amendment. Only when you have invoked that right, only when you have exercised it. If you engage in conversation, it's consensual, and nobody stops that conversation because the cops wanted to keep going. And pretty soon you've put yourself at the scene of the crime. You've told them what you've got, and that stuff is going to be used against you later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look,
Mm-hmm.
people think that when I say that, I want people to get away with crime, right? They think, hey, well, you're telling criminals how to get free. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling people how to behave under the Constitution that many have died for.
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of our people have died protecting that document. And we
Mm-hmm.
do so even till today. And anyone who tells you you shouldn't comply by the Constitution, well, they're wrong, because that is the one document that governs us all, even police officers. And that's why I preach what I preach. You know, you can, and I understand.
So what happens when you are detained? Because you know that you talk about a stressful event.
Exactly.
What happens to your possessions? What happens if you have a pet in the car? What
Right.
happens if you have a child in the car? What if you have an elderly person in the car? What happens when they detain you, take you down to the station? What happens to
Right.
your phone, to your wallet, to your possession? What walk us
Yeah.
through that, because just the thought of that is insane. When they do, and if they find nothing, then they let you free. But where is your car? Where is your
Right.
stuff? And how do you get home?
Exactly. Very good point. And here's my response. I'd rather protect myself even though I possibly could lose something. Now, here's what's going to happen usually. When I'm compliant, I exercise my rights and they want to arrest me. Yes, they could lock my car up. They possibly could impound my car. Now, if they don't lock my car up, it's where I left it. If it's not a car issue, then we're talking about my personal property. Well, now we're talking about being booked into the county jail or some county jail. My property will follow me, my wallet, keys, things like that. If someone is at the scene, you may have an opportunity to give your stuff to someone in order to take your car, your wallet, and things like that, because you don't want it lost when you are arrested. So immediate property that you may have on you at the time will get booked with you. Now, whether it gets lost along the way, you see something like that, I'm going to tell you, it happens now and then, but I would rather have to go get my new ID than I just committed or I admitted to a crime whereby now I'm being charged with something, and the only thing they have to help them prosecute me is because I said something very stupid in a moment of stress. I get what you're saying about the stress, and I understand that completely because
Mm-hmm.
I was that way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want nobody talking shit to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially a cop.
Mm-hmm.
But I have learned over the years the best behavior is not to engage with them. You have to, and I know what you mean, because I'm out here having fun. Listen, we playing basketball and the cops come and oh, all right, everybody show me your ID. Wait a minute, and we're upset,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We're mad.
Mm-hmm.
But the best thing for us all to do is to look at each other, remain silent. Are we free to leave? Now, obviously, they've got to tell us, no, you're not. Well, we all want our lawyers, and here's our IDs. Now, whatever crime they claim occurred, they better have cause to take somebody in on it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at that point. And if it is baseless, you can and will be successful later when you fight your case in court than out there on the basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned about your possessions, your pets, things like that. Now, generally, if you're arrested at home, okay, things are going to remain there. You know, they're not taking anything unless it's evidence, you know, that possibly could be used. So it's, I would say that problem.
Well, so let's say you got a truck, you got your dog in the back of the car, or what have you. You're being detained. What happens to your dog?
Now, most of the time, you may, now dig this. Here's what probably in reality, you can probably be allowed to call somebody to come get your dog, to come get your truck. But you got to realize, if they have cause to arrest you, they are going to do that. Now, when you get down to a station, a place, people always are this misconception about, where's my one phone call, right? Or something like that. There is an opportunity to make a phone call, but they're not going to grant it to you right away. The faster you allow this booking process to go, the faster you will have access to a phone to then get somebody to get your stuff, to do what you need to do. So the key is cooperation. It really is, and it's for the moment.
And you say cooperation because and the cooperation is invoking the Fourth and Fifth Amendment.
Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights.
But exactly. I see them seeing that as not cooperating at all and pissing them off, because it's shutting them down and making them look like they don't know what the hell they're doing, and setting them up for failure.
That's true. I mean, look. All right, what's the argument? The argument is that, okay, most cops are good. Most cops follow the law, right? If that is true.
If you're white and say that, yes. But if you're black, and black folk ain't saying that.
I know. Well, one of our
most cops are good. We don't believe that at all.
A lot of cops, though, who look like us. And when we look at the jurisdictions of New Orleans, I think Minnesota, including Dallas, the leaders of the cops look like us, the captains. So I gotta believe that at least some cops are good. Now, I'm not gonna believe all of them are good. I don't believe anybody's good. You know, I mean, that's something left in a biblical fashion, right? Of that kind of judgment. But I gotta believe that cops want to do their job.
Not even good, but just lawful,
right?
And which is not necessarily being good; it's just being lawful. And following the law.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of these cops, they break the law and then hide behind the blue shield.
You're right. And we can catch them because today we have a beautiful tool such as cell phones, smartphones. It's the only way things have been brought out. I preach about it all the time. They've been beating us, shooting us for years. Years. It used to be in the 60s. They were doing it and they were allowed to do it. Now things have changed to where they're just not allowed to do it, but it can still go on. But all I'm preaching is how to protect yourself by doing what you can. If there's a bad egg, that bad egg hopefully will be exposed through that video camera, like the guy in Florida, whereby that's all on video. So there's no question what he was doing. You see what I mean? How he was behaving at the time. The guy, Mr. Sterling, Mr. Castillo. I don't see the entire video to know, but what I see is that something escalated somehow. What I'm trying to preach is to de-escalate the situation right away. There may be consequences in terms of I got to get arrested, but believe me, that is much better than I am now in the hospital or I'm dead, because I escalated the situation. We can only control our own behavior. There's no way we're going to control every freaking cop in every situation. And that is just a sad story.
In our first show, you also mentioned, I think, another major nugget of wisdom, since we're talking about cameras.
Yes.
And that is, if you're being detained and you're at the police station, you said turn to the camera and say, I want to speak to my lawyer. So that way they can't say you never said it.
There you go.
Requested it.
There you go. And if you are arrested, right, the situation happens. I get arrested. I go through the protocol, and they do take me down. Now they'll sit me in a room, a holding cell, something. They'll develop their strategy on how they want to question me. Okay. Now, when they do come into that room, the first thing they're going to say then is probably, hey, I want to talk to you, but let me just read you some rights. You see? You let them read you the rights. Why? Because you're not telling them anything. You're not saying anything, even when they say that. And then they'll get to that point of reading your rights where they say, now, do you want to talk to me? Now, think about what a person should say at that particular point. No, I don't want to talk to you. If the officer doesn't wrap up his stuff and walk away, then whenever he says anything to you, yes, you can look at the camera in the room and say, I told you I don't want to talk to you. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Eventually, but the beautiful part is, if you're that smart, you're never going to be broken down. You see, 2 minutes later, the cops come back, and then you go, okay, forget it. I'm giving up my right. Let me tell you everything. Now, if you do that, you see, I can't help you. I can't help you if you pull that. That would be a very stupid thing to do. You have to stay level with your facts. You've got to stay level with your thoughts. Once you invoke your rights, you got to understand that is such a powerful move that they actually have to stop questioning you at that point. Now, you're not going to give them anything, so they're not going to have anything to use later. They're just going to be embarrassed at the fact that you've invoked your rights and they didn't stop. So you effectuated, in fact, everything you wanted to do by looking at the camera, and they understand it. I get to watch, believe it or not, a lot of interviews with people, and I'll tell you, the ones where cops get away with abuse, the ones where cops get things from people, is when the individuals are inviting a conversation. They start saying things like, well, what do you think's going to happen to me? What are you charging me with? Well, why are you doing that? You see? Asking way too many questions, because the officer's not, like I said, they're going to lie to you. They're going to tell you anything. Once you do that, if I just read you your rights and you say, I'm invoking them, and Keith told me to look at the camera and say it, and then 2 minutes later, cop comes back in the room and says, hey, you want something to drink? Yeah, sure, give me a Coke. Well, I'd love to give you a Coke, but God, we really want to talk to you. I think you want to talk to us maybe just a little bit. See what I'm saying? Now, if you're stupid enough to go, you know what? Okay, forget everything I said before. I'm now going to waive my right. You don't even have to say it that way, but as soon as you start talking, the officer may be allowed to now continue questioning. And it's only because you did it. You reached out.
Now, what happens in the situation when they come knocking on your door and they or they call you and they say, "Can you come down? We want to talk to you."
Oh, perfect. If the cops ever call you and tell you we want to talk to you, I will be bringing my lawyer. See what I'm saying? Oh, I'll come, but I'll have my lawyer. Now, frankly, I would say, I think you're going to have to come and do what you got to do, but I'm invoking my rights to have a lawyer present. So let them come out, because I'm going to tell you something. Here's the key. Watch this. If cops come to you, if they're calling you, okay, to come down, they don't have anything. They don't have anything. If they're calling you, think about that. They're probing you.
They're calling you down so you can incriminate yourself.
Exactly. And they'll put it in the phrase of, hey, we need some help with this. We just want to get your side of the story. But if they're calling you, they don't have anything. Now, if they're knocking at your door, that's different. They may have an arrest warrant. Already. They're going to arrest you, no matter what you say. So the most important thing to say is, if they come to your door, am I free to leave? Am I free to close the door? You see what I mean? If they say no, then you know they have an arrest warrant for you. You do, and so let them do what they're going to do. I have nothing to say.
You don't automatically, which is intuitive. You say, well, what is this about? Why am I being arrested? What the hell is
Exactly.
it? That's the first thing that you would think to say. Is like, what is this about?
Right.
Why am I
Why do
being
you
arrested?
want to talk to me?
Right, right. And
Wrong
that's where you
question.
screw up. That's where you
That's
screw
where
up.
you screw up.
Wow.
I mean, it's a, you know, on the one hand, it's amazingly simple how you can behave. But
Yeah.
on the other
It's just
hand, it
so
seems
counter.
so
It's like,
difficult.
wow, Keith, it's so damn counterintuitive. It's like, pardon my
Right.
French, fuck. How the hell do I not ask that question? Because it's so offensive. It's such a interruption, an abrupt interruption of my life
Correct.
that I
But
just want to know, why are you doing this? What is this for? What is this about? And the fact that I would say that or ask that question, boom, I've already screwed myself.
let's look at it this way, okay? The police, like I was saying, there may be a situation you call the police, right? And you need
Mm-hmm.
them. If you did that, you want them to do their job to the best abilities that they can.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a suspect to go question them. You see,
Mm-hmm.
if there's somebody to arrest, go
Mm-hmm.
arrest them. Because I
Mm-hmm.
want you
Mm-hmm.
to do your job. In fact, what we all got to remember is we pay these guys to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
We pay them handsomely. They get pensions to do their job. So there's no reason for them not to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
But but bringing up the part where when if you are encountering them and you don't call them, you've got to realize you're probably the suspect or the witness in their mentality. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It is so counterintuitive to not to want to ask that question, you know, hey, why are you messing with me? But I'm gonna tell you something. It's it's more common sense. It's more smart, let's say, to know how to behave when they do come at you. They're
Mm-hmm.
going at some point in our lives, unfortunately, we run into cops, whether we like it or not. And so knowing what to do in that situation almost has to be a reaction. Just like you said, the reaction to talk,
Mm-hmm.
cops, though, there should be a reaction to shut down, not argue, inquire. Am I free to go? Because
Mm-hmm.
if the answer is no, if they've got guns drawn, it seems ridiculous. Hey, am I free to walk away? You see what I
Obviously
mean?
not. Obviously not.
Right. Obviously not. But you've got to establish that because
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is. You are free to go. You see what I'm saying? Maybe they're doing it as part of their rules. And that's why the next thing, even though, no, you're not, we've got guns on you, well, then I want to talk to my lawyer because you are now detained. You
Mm-hmm.
are now subject to them questioning you. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've got to lay the groundwork right up front that you're not answering questions. Because here's the one thing you can assume. Like I said, they assume you're the suspect in something. They assume that you've done something. And the problem is you don't know what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't know. And that's just a sad way that we've got to move through this situation. But
Mm-hmm.
but my vision is, but if we as young, old, white, black, whoever exercises their rights under the Constitution, then the cops do have a duty to comply.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And that's all we can control. You see, I call it changing the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Changing it
Mm-hmm.
from why you messing with me to merely saying, am I free to go? And if not, I'm not talking because I'm giving you the message that I understand your job. I understand what you're doing. And I'm going to exercise the rights that I have because I am a citizen of this nation. And
So
frankly,
let's do this as we get ready to close down, Keith, and that is, this is going to save some children, because kids, we need to teach this to our children.
that's true.
We know about this, as adults,
Right.
but our babies are being targeted.
That's right.
Our young boys and our young girls are now being targeted. I always have, well, young boys always been targeted. Now they're killing the girls.
It's true.
Um,
Well,
we have
let's
to teach
yeah,
we have to teach our children that to not become agitated and confrontational, and
correct.
to say those two things when the cops pull them over, or if the cops pull them over.
Because
And
it
that it's
applies
not
to
enough for
children
them to
too.
say, I want to speak to my mother,
That's right.
or something like, you know, I want
That's
my
right.
granddad, I want Uncle Buck coming down. No, you have to say those two things, the Fourth and Fifth Amendment.
Hold on, I'm getting a delay.
Yeah, I got a delay there, but
Okay.
you're on now. You're good.
Here's my point on children.
Okay.
Okay. Mothers, and they say, and African American mothers, fathers, they always say we have to have a conversation with our children about how to deal with cops, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Part of that conversation is understanding that they don't have to call the parents. The child is left to assert their constitutional rights. So, if you are encountered by officers, a child can say, "Am I free to go?" And when you're not, I want to speak to my lawyer. Because, and here's
Mm.
why. Are there 13, 14, 15-year-old kids who get arrested for serious crimes like shootings, murder, rape, things like that? That happens,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And those kids are subject to, depending on the state, depending on the law, a life sentence. They're subject to criminal prosecution that could amount to years. A lot of times what we see is children are subject to also manipulation, much easier than adults. Now, I would argue there are children who are smarter than adults, because it
Mm.
would probably be the child who's the one who's able to go, wait a minute, am I free to walk away? If not, I want to talk to my lawyer. I think a
Mm-hmm.
child would assert that more than an adult, because as
Mm-hmm.
an adult, we picked up bad habits. Just like you said, we now want to fight everything. We're now pissed off because you have now harassed me. How dare
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
treat me this way?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
see, because we haven't established that relationship long time ago in our minds. So we're more apt to go off on a cop than the child would. And if the child learns that, the child would be in a better position, and so will the parents.
So this would be a necessary part of racial socialization for a child to
Exactly.
learn this, for a parent to
Exactly.
teach the
And
children.
it's empirical. There are studies done. Defense attorneys and other psychologists that will talk to you about how when children are interrogated, a lot of times, they're the easiest ones to twist up. Because I mean, in their stories over and over again, where children are admitting to crimes because their minds are telling them, well, if I just say I did it, they're gonna let me go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're the
Mm-hmm.
easiest ones sometimes, you see? And that happens. It has happened. There are cases like that. And so that's why children have to invoke also, or they're subject to 2-3 hours of interrogation, in and out, in and out. Can I see my mom? When they start crying about their mom, or I want to see some family members, the cops, they also see that. And that's also subject to scrutiny as to whether the cops should stop or not. But technically, under the law, they don't have to go get mom and bring her in. Now, I'll tell you something. The New York case where the kids were Central Park, accused of raping the girl. They spent years and years in prison until someone admitted to doing it. In that situation, what we saw was, even when the parents came, the officers tell the parents, because parents walk into the police department going, "What are you doing with my kid? Why you got my kid here?" You see, they're going
Mm-hmm.
off, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And the cops say, well, he did this, he did that. Well, he didn't do that. He'll tell me if he did it. And they'll let the child see that parent. And that parent will say, Billy, did you do that? Billy, what'd you do? And you forget the cameras are on. And if Billy
Mm.
admits to what he did,
That's it. Game over.
there you go. That's why the parent might not
So
necessarily
this
be
is
the one to
a good
call.
question. This is a good dialogue. So then, what do parents say when they come down?
All they have to basically is, my kid going to be released to me? When are you going to release my child? You see, that you don't have
Well,
to
we
be
just want to
involved.
talk to you. We want to ask you a few questions, Mom or Dad. We just want to ask you a few questions.
Mom or dad can say, am I free to leave?
Mm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
Should I go get my lawyer?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're only there to get their kid. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So they
Mm-hmm.
can also incriminate the kid pretty much
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
by saying something. You see? And they
Wow.
don't know that.
Wow.
They don't know that at the time. It could be so simple. What, look how simple it could be. Your child was out playing with other kids, right? There's a timing issue over whether the kid was at home. So, they think the kid would participated in a robbery at a certain time. So
Mm-hmm.
now the parent comes in and they want to question the kid. Well, we think he was involved in a robbery, but what we really want to know is, was he at home at this particular time?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
the parent might say, well, God, really, the parent may not know. You see, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, maybe. But by answering, by giving them that information, they may be hurting that child because
Wow.
they don't know what that child said.
The other thing that I'm also learning from this is that even if you are guilty
Right.
of the crime,
Yes.
you could have 14 illegal guns on your possession, crack cocaine, heroin, meth, opium, the whole nine. You could be, you just killed two people, what have you. This is, if you say yes, it's going to be even worse. But if you invoke these amendments, you have a fighting chance to either lessen your time or have no time. But it is going to be an inconvenience, and it's about dealing with, I'm going to be detained, I'm going to be inconvenienced, I'm guilty of something, but I don't have to tell them that. I don't
Exactly.
have to tell them I'm guilty.
That's your
That's a
right to.
powerful thing, Keith.
Yes.
That's extremely powerful.
Oh, yes. And this is
You know,
why I
oh,
say it applies.
I might have more than the legal limit of marijuana on me, right?
That no,
It might be medical marijuana, but it might
right.
be more than what it is, whatever the
Your
standard is. I
prescription.
don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't have to tell them that.
That's right. That's right.
Even if I know, yep, I got I got a whole case right here, but
Yeah.
man, you don't have to do that.
That's right.
That's exceptionally powerful.
And the way the Fifth Amendment reads is that you do not have to be a witness against yourself. You do not have to
Mm,
incriminate yourself. You can't be forced to do that when you exercise your rights.
mhm, mhm,
So this was thought of, think of this. This was thought of in 1776 that
mhm,
we were not going to let people do that if they invoked that right. So
mhm,
it isn't a novel idea. And that's why it applies to everyone. I don't care if you're guilty or innocent. What I'm saying is, number one, you protect your life by the behavior, number one. Now, if you are guilty, believe me, the system will deal with that. But there may be situations to where you say things that incriminate you
to make
because,
it worse.
and it makes it worse.
It's like
Exactly.
when you were a kid. Remember when you were a kid and mom, you did something, and you almost admit to something, and your mom didn't even know about it.
That's right. Right.
And now,
Exactly.
you did what? Oh, I didn't. Oh, now I'm really gonna beat your ass.
There you go.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not trying to slick anybody. I'm not trying to fool anybody. I'm
Right.
speaking from the Constitution.
Wow.
So we honor soldiers, veterans for fighting for what? The rights to have this Constitution, the rights under this Constitution.
Mm.
We claim this document is the most sacred thing in our democracy. That's why we protect it so. That's
Mm-hmm.
why the movies are out, about protecting the Constitution, this document. because it is very important. And that's why it doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent. Believe me, my motive is I want to save some lives. And I know this, that when peace officers stop African Americans, there is always a dispute. And I say, stop the dispute. That's all. Cut the crap. Exercise your rights and move on. And you may live. At least you're not going to get beat. You see what I'm saying? Because you gave them nothing. You know, you gave them nothing to act upon. So when the cameras are rolling, and that's how you behave, you're compliant, you're exercising your rights, you are never wrong. And we hope in those situations, and that's for other things for us to deal with, is how to operate when that is detected, that the officers went over the line. That's where the other parts of our justice system do kick in. And we don't have any control over it, but we would hope that that system then will work for that person when that situation occurs. So
you know, leaving out of this is you know, you don't know what the hell is going to happen, but you do know that there is a high possibility that you can make it a lot worse.
That's right. By opening up your mouth, and
you can make it a lot, and resisting and not complying.
There you go.
You can make it deadly.
A lot worse. I mean,
so I think that's really the nugget here, is that, okay, you know, we don't like to think that we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't.
Right.
But there's different levels of damn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd much rather be alive and walk away than I created an environment whereby I may have allowed them to do something to me. That's the worst thing. I view that as the terrible thing. It's because I spoke up. You see, because I questioned, because I shook my arm, because I didn't want to go to jail. You see, I mean, you know, if we do things, there is a price to pay, no matter what, right? I mean, and it don't have to be jail. You fool around on your wife, your girlfriend, something like that, there's probably a price to pay. And it has nothing to do with jail or anything like that, incarceration. You know, it has to do with you and that person.
Everything costs something.
Everything costs something.
Yeah.
I want to pay a small price. You see,
right.
I want to make sure that my people are not paying ultimate prices. That's my motivation. Is why should we pay that ultimate price?
Right.
When we are protected under the Constitution, like everybody.
How can I pay the lowest price for this problem?
That's right. And the first one is the first line of defense out there on the battlefield. When you are encountered and you are either a witness, a suspect, or the perpetrator, or witness, suspect, or who's the third? With the third ring. When the cops come out and they don't know how to treat me, they don't know who I am, because I'll get the same thing. Me and you will get the same thing. Come on. I can be in a suit and I can get the same behavior. I mean, I'll just say from personal experience, let's just say I have been pulled over with the guns drawn and told, get out of the vehicle. And I comply. And the only thing I said was nothing. You see what I'm saying? Nothing. I didn't give him anything. I didn't even have to ask if I was free to leave, because I was smart enough to know I wasn't when the guns were drawn. So I gave them nothing. Name, rank, serial number. I listened. I watched. But I said nothing. Even sitting in booking, sitting with all the drunk ass people and stuff, waiting, you see, going through hours and hours. I said nothing. And you protect yourself in that. They weren't going to kill me that day, because I wasn't going to let them kill me, because I acted under my rights of the Constitution.
Wow.
And it's a hard thing to do. Philippe, I will tell you, it is a hard thing to wrap your head around to do in that moment of stress. But you know, we live stressful lives every day.
No doubt.
This is something that we can practice right now. You see what I'm
No
saying?
doubt.
Before
No
you
doubt.
run into that situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is something you put in your head now, just like what we have to go through when we have to deal with people in our hoods and in our places who threaten us on a day-to-day basis. We got to get our minds right to deal with that kind of stuff in the first place.
Fantastic. How can people get in contact with you and learn more?
Actually,
you have a brochure.
Yes, I have a brochure. I have a book, and it's all on my website, kjscriminaldefense.com, all lowercase.
Here's the brochure, ladies and gentlemen, right here.
You can download the brochure. You can download the book, which is about navigating your way through the criminal justice system.
It's a quick guide for citizens on asserting their rights during police encounters. And what I love about this is it's pretty, even though it's a brochure, but I mean it's the most likely encounters you're going to have with law enforcement, and it's pretty replete.
Yeah, I tried to keep it as simple as possible and to cover.
If you're stopped in your car, if you're stopped for questioning, if you are arrested or taken to the police station, that's pretty much it.
That's right. It's going to be one of those situations.
It's going to be one of those. That's right. It's going to be one of those, people.
And I'm going to tell you, the mindset
download this. And ladies and gentlemen, it's free. So it's nobody's fault for you not knowing this.
That's right.
All right, because this is not, this is not like a Richard Pryor joke where, the book is free, but the pages are $19.95. This is free.
That's right.
Right? So you have no excuse.
And I'll tell you something.
What's the web address again, Steve?
I'm sorry.
What's the web address? It's on here. What's the web address?
Oh, my web address, kjscriminaldefense.com, all lowercase.
kjscriminaldefense.com. Fantastic.
And I'll tell you, for
close
all
me
those,
out, Keith. Close me out. What we need to take home.
I'm very serious about knowing this information before you run into the situation. We have an opportunity to marinate on it. You have an opportunity to think about what I'm saying. If you want to check up what I'm saying, you can look at the 4th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution. Everyone should carry one. They give them away for free, little ones. We need to read that sometimes. But the most important thing is it should be your mindset before you get caught in a situation. I don't care if I'm selling crack on the corner. I got to know that. So when the cops come up and it's my day, you see, because it's my day, someday it's going to be your day. If that's what you're doing, it's going to be your day one day. And when they come up, you'll know exactly what to do.
To stay alive.
To stay alive. Because it's your day. It's your time. And that can happen to anyone today or tomorrow. And all I'm saying is stay alive. We have to stay alive. It's been our culture to survive and stay alive. It has been one of the things that I think frustrates other people is that we have this ability to stay alive through all that we have gone through. So this is our system. These are our rights. We have to exercise them in order for them to flourish, just like you would your body.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Keith Staten, ladies and gentlemen, this is so the law office of Keith J. Staten. The web address is kjscriminaldefense.com. 24 years, man. You've been doing this.
I've been doing this.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. So what I want to do is I want to have you come back, because what I want to do now, we've established the base of what to do to know your rights. Now, I want to do an entire show on what happens if you are a felon or a probationary felon. How do you assert your rights in those in that situation? That's a whole nother show and a whole nother conversation. Let's do this. Let's change our lives. Let's empower ourselves, regardless of what has happened to us, what will happen to us, and what is currently being done to us.
Correct. And remember, we've got to save our own lives. It's not the time to tell them to save us. It's the time for us to save us. And I would ask everyone, we got to look at each other differently. We have to go back to the time when we looked at each other as brothers in arms against
Yes.
one thing. You know, we've got to start carrying the torch, and that's going to be the next thing we'd love to talk about, or I'd love to talk about with you too, is how do we now bring that kind of solidarity back to deal with the other issues in our society that ail us right now.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, you know, I got to chase you down because you're always in court. You're always saving lives.
I'm trying.
Every time I call this cat, he's like, "I'm in court right now. I can't talk. I'm in jail right now." I'm like, "You in jail?" It's like, "Oh no, he's the attorney. That's why you're in the jail." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what happened?" No.
I get to walk out most of the time.
Yeah, you get to walk out most of the time. But no, seriously, we're gonna come back because we're doing a series here, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the most radically important conversations I have had, and it's one of the most important conversations you are going to be privy to, that you should know, not only for yourself, for your children, for your neighbors, for your friends, for your family, anybody you know that you love and care about. They need to know this, and I mean know it, not just understand it, but know it and know how to invoke it. Right. Keith, I can't thank you enough, bro.
I thank you, and I hope everybody walk in peace. Walk in peace.
All right, my brother. Stick around with me in the green room. We're signing off on the Philippe Matthews Show Live. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care, everybody, wherever you are.